Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Newsroom. This is Umar Khalid. But today is the 2nd of December 2024. The last month of the year begins, but of course every month, every day brings with us new stories, new developments on the national international front. So let's begin without further ado on what we will discuss during the course of the day. We'll begin with the formation of a joint task force that has been made to identify those who are involved in nefarious propaganda against the state of Pakistan. We've highlighted that many times in the past as well through disinformation, misinformation and other tactics as well. Now this 10-member joint task force that has been formed is going to give its recommendation within a period of 10 days as well as to what is going to be the modus operandi as far as handling this kind of nefarious agendas and the people behind it is concerned. Our second story, ladies and gentlemen, concerns Syria. We are trying to venture into this new territory because we haven't really talked about Syria in the last few months, but there are a lot of developments that are happening in Syria which of course concern the advancement of Syrian rebels. What does that affect as far as Syria is concerned? Is the Syrian government in the hold of these activities? Are they doing the needful? Are the other countries also cognizant of what is happening? The number of casualties keeps on increasing, and how is Syrian government and its allies going to control the rebels? This will be discussed in our second segment. Then we'll be discussing the US, where Joe Biden has pardoned his son Hunter Biden, an official pardon for his son who was facing sentencing for 2 criminal cases despite previously ruling it out. Change of heart, fatherly instincts, well, I leave it to you. Finally, today is International Day for the Abolition of Slavery. The year's theme is fighting slavery's legacy of racism through transformative education. And I think this is a very interesting and important forum to also highlight slavery, because slavery exists in different forms and manifestations, and we need to have this transformative form of education in order to tackle issues that trickle out of this issue, that is slavery issue. Menace, you decide. Let's begin with our first segment, and that concerns the joint task force that has been constituted in order to tackle the nefarious mechanisms, machinations of all those who are trying to destabilize Pakistan through one way or the other. We've been joined by Brigadier retired Masud Ahmed Khan Sahab, who's a defense analyst in the studios to discuss that. Thank you very much, Brigadier Sahab, to have joined us. Brigadier Sahab, first of all, this task force, tell us a little bit about it, because I know there are 10 members, but is it a mix and match of different ministries? Who heads it, and what is the modus operandi of this task force?
Certainly, this task force has been given a mandate, firstly, to investigate and identify those groups as well as the individuals who are involved in this and is pushing this nefarious or the malicious campaigns against the state of Pakistan and state institution. That is one. So the task force comprises will be headed by the chairman, Pakistan Telecommunication Authority. Then there are representatives from Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Information and Ministry of Information Technology. There are representatives from the intelligence agencies, ISI, MI, or Intelligence Bureau, and also there is a representation from the cyber wing of the newly created cyber wing. So there is this basically comprises different members representing different organizations. So they are, I'm sure they are going to give the responsibility. They are going to fix the responsibility who are involved in this activity. So certainly this was expected, and this is the step the government has taken in the right direction. We have to identify those involved in those 4 days, and they created a situation. They tried their level best to internationalize this issue across the globe. There's something civil war is going on in Pakistan. So therefore, I think the step the government has taken in the right direction.
10 days, that is the time that has been given to this 10-member committee. There's a lot of 10s in there. But is 10 days enough to highlight, to identify all those who are behind such activities?
Certainly, the intelligence agencies are there. They have the information. So since they are the responsible to keep a watch on all the activities, especially when we talk of anti-state activities, so they have the information. They are assisting the government in finalizing, in drawing their conclusions, their findings, and also while giving the recommendation and what actions to be taken against them. So they will they have all the potential to do in 10 days.
Various violations, Brigadier Sahab, are happening on different platforms. Social media platforms, of course, head that list. Domestic, foreign-based media platforms used to perpetrate concocted, baseless news that incite certain sections of the society deliberately, and it is all based on disinformation or misinformation. Who tends to benefit from such violations?
Firstly, this basically was what actually happened from 24 to 27, and subsequently the social media accounts they were used, and those accounts they resorted to massively. It was a planned and organized this social media campaign to basically malign the state institutions, and especially by exaggerating the accusing the state the law enforcing agencies for causing death of the so-called figures which they accordingly to them which they projected, that was by design to malign the state institution. And subsequently we have seen the casualties, they were ranging from tens to hundreds, to thousands, and accordingly unfortunately the international media also took a lead from these the so-called media campaigns or the social media brigades, and accordingly this was reported by them also. And recently, and we saw, and BBC also created a report, and with the government of Pakistan he asked a clarification from them, from their sources, and giving an exaggerated figure. So it was by design to basically to incite to discredit this government, and secondly it was to incite the public against state institutions and to create a division between the nation and the armed forces of Pakistan, and also an effort was apparently was made to divide rank and file. So that was the objective as a whole. If we can see, this was done by these the social media accounts, those living inside Pakistan, and of course those living abroad. They use the use of social media to create a situation, a war-like situation in Islamabad, and we have seen the clips which were shared, or it was mostly they were artificial intelligence generated clips.
All right.
And secondly, the clips some of the clips they were taken from Gaza, and in addition there was a clip which went very viral, and that was the clip was where doctors were seen treating injured people, and so it was depicted this has happened in Islamabad, but actually there was a clip taken in 2019. There was a clash between two groups in Nankana Sahib. So that clip was taken and projected that has happened in Islamabad. And similarly, there was a clip taken from Libya and projected in Islamabad. So this is how the social media was used to malign the state institution and the state of Pakistan.
All right, Brigadier Sahab, what legal or regulatory frameworks do you feel the task force that has been constituted will use to identify and prosecute these individuals or groups behind it?
So we have PICA, Prevention of Electronic Crime Act 2016. It is the responsibility to regulate basically the social media. Then we saw the digital rights, this is the Digital Rights Prevention Authority, and then there is a defamation law which was passed by the government of Punjab to try those using social media to malign the institutions. And then recently there was yet another organization which was created that was National Cyber Crimes Investigation Agency, which is part of this task force. So they are also responsible to regulate the social media, the internet, the use of internet. And then probably there is a requirement of robust media policy, and this has to be under the chairman, Pakistan Telecommunication Authority, unless we take some of those culprits involved after this task force when they conclude. If they are not punished, nothing is going to change. So there is a requirement of punishing those involved, those that are doing it by design, And look what actually happened in the Capitol Hill incident. There were about 1,044 people they were arrested, and out of those 835 they were tried for using social media, etc., and they were punished for punishment ranging from 8 years, 10 years, 12 years and 14 years. And recently in the United Kingdom, in the Southport, there was violence. So they not only punish those, basically they use use social media to incite hatred and created a racial division between the communities. Even those were also arrested from their houses, who basically those who retweeted or reposted or they liked or shared any post or thing which basically was amount to incite violence or hatred. So they were also punished. So in case of Pakistan, we haven't seen anybody as punished as yet. So there is a requirement of using these regulatory authorities, bills passed over a period of time to take them to task.
All right, Brigadier Sahab, also for laymen, we need to understand, or they need to understand, what the difference is between freedom of expression and malicious propaganda. How would you define that? What is the difference between these two?
Malicious propaganda is when you, by design, out of sheer hatred, when you malign your state institution, you level allegations baselessly by by sharing fake news. Right, in this case, when they talk of the deaths, statement of death, and they said there are in so and so number, and there was a different number of deaths claimed by the members of their political party, but actually not a single evidence was provided for those substantiate those deaths. So this we can say this was a Malaysian campaign, and by design and projecting the security agencies or the state institutions violating the freedom of expression, not allowing to speak, but in the garb of freedom of expression, when you start maligning your state institution while sitting in Pakistan, while sitting outside Pakistan with insulting narratives, you take the state institution, they are involved in firing, etc., whereas Pakistan army never, they were in direct contact or confrontation with the protesters. So it was basically the rangers and the police. So it was by design. So this was the malicious campaign to implicate the security agencies, security institutions in this activity.
All right, Brigadier Sahab, a lot of responsibilities on this 10-member committee, and of course they have a certain amount of days before they have to move towards their modus operandi that they would have decided upon. What measures also need to be taken in your point of view to ensure transparency and fairness in this task force operations?
Certainly they are going to do it, they will do it when they will get all the evidence and transparency. Since they are going to share this, the report of this task force to the public, certainly their involvement, the government is going to establish those involved. The basic mandate and objective of this task force is to establish, to fix the responsibility, why it was done. Who was behind this campaign, a deliberate campaign, planned one, coordinated one to discredit this government, the state institution. Certainly they will go and they will fix the responsibility, and those involved, they will be certainly those whosoever, whether they are individuals in the individual or they are in the groups, they will be nominated and they will be made public that these are the people who are involved. So the agencies, the security agencies, they have all the information.
All right. Now, speaking of information, you know, some of the people or organizations might be in Pakistan, but a lot of them are outside of Pakistan. How will this joint task force coordinate with agencies that are outside so that those people could also be, you know, indicted, those who are involved from outside of Pakistan? What methodology could be used in that context?
Certainly this is not a new thing, and we had in the past, we have the concern as far as mostly the people who are outside Pakistan, they are using the social media accounts to basically malign Pakistan, whether it is YouTube or these Twitter, the former Twitter of Facebook, etc. Still they are using, and they are doing it openly, whether they are in United Kingdom, United States or elsewhere. The only thing is Pakistan had been in the past, they have been requesting those governments to take action against those individuals because they are responsible for inciting violence inside Pakistan. And they are basically instrumental in so many, if you see them, the way they are pushing the fake news, fake narratives in Pakistan, and they are doing it as they were sitting next to those individuals while quoting them. So there is a requirement to those responsible in the West, they must act with responsibility. Either they should take action against them, or they should impose some restrictions on them, or they should be handed over to Pakistan. As per the law of the land, they should be taken to task, but they are instrumental in.
All right, Brigadier Sahab, also 10 days, 10 member committee. How will this joint task force communicate its progress or findings? Which channel is it going to use? Is it going to use social media? Is it going to use traditional television channels like ours? Is it going to use radio? What is the methodology there?
Certainly they will going to use the official channels, and subsequently after finalizing, when they come to the conclusions of the outcome of this, after sharing with the government of Pakistan and with the Prime Minister, subsequently they are going to publish it through media, that is official media and the private channels. That will be the only means available to communicate with the public of the country.
Brigadier Sahab, also this joint task force that has been initiated, it's a very good effort in the right direction, but does this align or does it differ from the previous governmental actions that have been taken by our government to to forge its action against disinformation or misinformation?
Certainly, and as I was telling, it's not the first time this has happened. It has been for the last couple of years. We have seen there are numerous incidents, and the way social media is being used, whether inside Pakistan or outside Pakistan. So this time, this government seems they are determined to take these things to the conclusions, and this is very important. At least we should understand that whosoever is involved, and to make it public, the involvement of these groups or individuals, whether they are sitting inside Pakistan, outside Pakistan, or controlling the activities in maligning the state institution. So the government is firm, and their resolve is they are going to get to bottom of this actual what happened on from 24 to 27. So that is very important. I am sure they are going to make the entire inquiry public once they conclude it.
The Brigadier Sahab, this you do mention between the 24th and 27th, but this has been going on for quite some time. It has been accentuated in this time period, but even before that, we have seen a regular campaigning against our defense forces or against those who are defending our motherland against all these nefarious designs. A deliberate attempt to destabilize Pakistan through such mechanisms. Do you feel once this joint task force is formed and it gives its results, there should be a strict implementation of whatever methodologies it proposes for those who have been involved in such nefarious activities?
Exactly, that is very important. Unless we take strict action, disciplinary action against those who were involved, despite the fact now we have a regulatory framework available across Pakistan, unless we take action, I don't think so there will be some change. So there is a requirement, and Chief of Army Staff has been referring this use of social media as a digital terrorism over a period of time.
Yes.
And look, and he has been quoting the verses from Holy Quran. And we can relate this with the recent happening in Pakistan. And if we say Surah Hujurat, there's a verse of Holy Quran, the meaning of which is that if somebody comes to you, a fasiq or evil person comes to you with a news, verify it, lest you then regret at later stage and you unintentionally you harm someone. So verifying the information is very important before doing something. That is one thing. Second, again in Surah Al-Baqarah, there is another verse which says, "O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, ask them to produce proof if they are on the right direction, or if they are in the right direction of that site. So there's a requirement, it is us and those people of Pakistan to ensure if they get a report, if they get some information, we must investigate and verify it before accepting it and subsequently sharing it and forwarding it or reposting it to others, to just to get more likes, or if you are doing it at the same time by design also.
But Brigadier Sir, we see so many closed groups, whether they be WhatsApp or they be message groups or they be other kind of groups, where a lot of such information is circulated openly, widely, without any proof whatsoever, and then they circulate it to other people who circulate it to the other. And this is a chain of events that goes on, and therein disinformation or misinformation is very easily distributed. Isn't it somehow, somewhere, our responsibility as citizens of Pakistan as well to also verify? You've given reference to of these verses of Quran, but the fact is, isn't that our responsibility? I mean, I understand the Joint Task Force is going to have a lot of responsibility, but we as citizens of Pakistan, aren't we also responsible to some extent?
Yes, certainly we are very responsible, but no, it is the shaping of public opinion. This is the we can say the brainwashing which has been done for over a period of time. No, the people there, instead of going into verifying the facts, they simply accept the story if floated by a responsible person, whether he is in Pakistan or sitting across Pakistan, without knowing fact which seems to be totally false and lie, but still. So there was this saying from Morgan Freeman, saying the truth, saying the lies and still believing the lies, like that. When you understand this is this information which has been floated in the social media is totally false, but still you accept it. So that is basically the idea which Joseph Goebbels also said, if you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, eventually people will start believing it. So this is how it is being done. And repeatedly you will see, and according to, I was reading one of the reports, one of the false news was seen, and it was by millions.
True.
So that is
not
how
the only news, there are so many news that are
how the minds are affected. But in the recent past, there is another development I would like to share here,
please go ahead.
which is certainly disgusting. That is mocking the shahadat of our soldiers on social media, and we have recently seen this development. It is a new law, and basically I just can't see, and if we can go to stoop so low to celebrate the blood of our soldiers, and we have seen recently and celebrating the shahadat of our soldiers by those basically head the armed forces. That is a new development in the country.
But that is because there are nefarious elements behind it. There are such groups behind it that are, using their methodology or their machinations in order to convince people that whatever they are saying is the truth, and we should move in that direction. And there is that vulnerable group that easily believes or does whatever is being said, and that is why the responsibility of this Joint Task Force is going to be paramount. Thank you very much, Brigadier Masud Saab, to have joined us, to have discussed this very, very important development as far as this disinformation, misinformation in recent incidents or in the past as well. I think it's time to put a stop to it and move in a direction wherein we can understand what is true and what is not. Thank you very much, sir, again, to have joined us. Let's come to our second story, and that concerns Syria. Now, when it concerns Syria, ladies and gentlemen, the Syrian opposition fighters are saying that they are pushing towards the northern city of Hama in Syria after taking control of nearby Aleppo in a lightning offensive that began last week. There's a lot of development to and fro and different versions of it, but we thought let's get the right version, what is actually happening in Syria. We've been joined by Arnaud Develay, who is an international jurist, political consultant, joins us from Syria. Thank you very much, Mr. Arnaud, to have joined us. Rescuers say 25 people have been killed in government and Russian airstrikes. Rebels say they have pushed south of Aleppo. Syrian army says it is gaining ground after losses. Syrian rebel forces say they have advanced past the abandoned regime equipment in Hama. What are these developments? What is actually happening, and why is it happening?
Yes, thank you for having me. Well, to be sure, the situation is extremely fluid right now. And propaganda, obviously, is going full-blown on all sides. Suffice it to say that, as you mentioned in your introduction, on the 27th of November, to the surprise of many people, including the Syrian army itself, major offensive were launched from the Idlib pocket, this northwestern province, from whence since 2020, the ceasefire agreed upon between Ankara and Moscow in March 2020, elements including militias and proxies have been essentially accumulating in that pocket. And they've been rearming, they've been bringing materials, they've been receiving intelligence support from the Kiev regime. And in so doing, they were, in a way, ready to make a move, which has thus far see the militants take quasi-control of the second largest city in the country, Aleppo, this industrial hub, so crucial in as far as contemplating reconstruction of the country. They moved east of the city and seized the base of Kuweres, in so doing capturing heavy equipment, helicopter, planes, Panzer anti-missile system. They've captured recently, the last few hours, the Kurdish stronghold of Tel Rifat. And for the time being, it seems that the situation in thus far as the offensive in the direction of Hama has been somewhat stopped, or at least stabilized, with the Syrian Arab army putting some kind of a temporary front line. The idea being to hold the offensive, put the brakes on it until reinforcement arrives, mostly from Iraq, neighboring Iraq, in the form of militia supported and equipped by Iraqi nationals by and large. So this is where we are right now. There were rumors of a coup in Damascus a couple of nights ago. Those were rumors, basically Syrian Arab army units engaging with what has been labeled as sleeping cells. And for the time being, the situation seems to be somewhat stabilizing, with Russian Air Force conducting constant raids on convoys of militants and in the stronghold of Idlib itself. So the situation is, as I say, somewhat evolutive by the hour, but for the time being, it somehow seems to be stabilizing.
What are the ideological or political ambitions of these rebel forces?
Well, one has to understand that by and large, those are either mercenaries or proxy groups supported by the US, by the Israelis. But owing to the somewhat diverse collection of militia and groups, not all of them obey to one sponsor. Each of them have their own sponsors, which leads occasionally to clashes between them, and those have started already. Suffice it to say that we have of course, the Al-Nusra groupings, HTS, as they are now rebranded, who basically advocate for a Takfirist ideology, owing to imposing some kind of nihilistic interpretation of Islam, some would say. So it's a very complicated situation. The Syrian theater of operation is a somewhat a Chinese puzzle, excuse me for the pun, which evolves constantly, bearing on the interests of all the parties involved.
All right. So complicated as the situation might be, you talk of Aleppo, you talk of Hama. Who controls these areas now as we speak strategically? And secondly, don't you feel that the ultimate, victim of all of this are the civilians? What has been the impact on the civilian populations in these areas?
Well, you do well to underline it, because obviously the civilians, but not also the civilians, the regular rank and files soldiers, most of them are not experienced soldiers. In the wake of the ceasefire agreed upon in Moscow in March 2020, there was a lot of demobilization at the rank and file level in the Syrian army, meaning that the most experimented soldiers were basically sent back home and replaced by people who basically had no idea how to fight, which explains by and large why those advances of the militants were so sudden and so large, is that they essentially abandoned their equipment and fled, not unlike what we've seen in Iraq in 2014. So this is a situation which obviously will be remedied, because a lot of those experimented veterans of the first phase from 2015 to 2020 were called back now. And like I said, the reinforcement in the form of militias coming from Iraq, we can also expect Iran to provide military advisors, and Russia will provide air cover and special forces. To the extent the parties control over the territories, we know the Syrian Arab Army controls Hama proper. And they've regained some of the localities north of Hama. But the situation, again, is very fluctuating in as far as both sides essentially claiming control over those countryside localities. But by and large, Aleppo is under control, by and large, of the militants, as well as localities situated south of Aleppo, and most importantly, there's a big control dispute right now over the M5 highway, which is a key strategic artery that's connecting Aleppo to Damascus. And so whoever controls the M5s has the initiative in as far as the opening of new fronts and the launching of new offensives.
Mr. Arnaud, also, I'd like to understand, you say the problem is extremely complex, more complex than we would have actually admit it to be. And of course, you talk about the advance of the rebels, you talk about Aleppo being in control of them. How does that affect the balance of power within the Syrian government, precisely in reference to Assad's regime?
Well, to be sure, we can only expect, once the situation is somewhat not only stabilized, but all those lost territories have been recovered, we can expect some robust discussions to take place on the account of what really happened and how was this lightning speed offensive of the rebel made possible. We know there were constant, regular, detailed, and contextualized reports provided by Russian intelligence, to name them, on the accumulation of men and material. And so, at least going back to October. So we can only speculate as to why those reports were essentially not taken into account in order to prevent what, by all account, led to the loss of a lot of rank and file soldiers, and it would appear already that civilians are taking the brunt, unfortunately, of some of the most extremist behavior coming from some of those militias. So this is the situation as it is now. Politically, we have a country that whose economy is basically wrecked. The people there have been enduring the effect of the seizure law. There were to be sure, economic sanctions imposed onto the country going back to 2013. Some would say as far as back as the 1980s. But the most pressing regime of sanctions was imposed in 2013, and it was aggravated in June 2020 when the Caesar law was applied, having been adopted by the US Congress in context of the National Defense Authorization Act of 2019. So this prevents any country surrounding, neighboring Syria from engaging into trade on the premise that they would be themselves subjected to secondary sanctions. So a lot of problems are also compounded, economically speaking, by the loss of the richest province of the country, the northeast third of the country, what's called referred as the Jazeera, which is rich in oil and also in barleys. And this impact, as we near into winter, yet another winter, this will obviously have a serious impact on the price of gasoline, the rationing of gasoline, the ability of the civilian population to stay warm during the winter, especially in those isolated areas. And this is something that politically is becoming increasingly difficult for the Syrian government because this 4-year lull, this somewhat a situation of a frozen conflict has only extended the suffering of the population in thus far as not leading to any military and by ricochet political victories, in thus far as not only purging the Idlib pockets, but also making moves to recover the Jazeera area in the northeast of the country. And so, as one is fond to say, frozen conflict are not won conflict nor lost conflict, but they have the potential, if they are allowed to remain in stasis, to reactivate themselves. And this is what we're seeing now, unfortunately.
Extremely unfortunate. Let's hope better sense prevails, some kind of control comes to the areas, and as you said, to those areas specifically which are rich in oil, which are rich in gas, and you talk of rationing of the gas supplies in the coming weeks and months. So the ultimate brunt of all of this is going to be borne by the citizens of Syria in this whole complex, extremely complex situation. Let's hope there's some kind of light at the end of the tunnel. Thank you very much, Arnaud Develay, international jurist, political consultant, joining us all the way from Syria to have given us an update, a very thorough update rather, I'd like to add, as far as this latest situation is concerned. Thank you very much, sir, to have joined us. Let's come to the studios now, and we've been joined by Dr. Ziaul Haq, who's in Director General of IRI. Thank you very much, Dr. Saab, to have joined us. Dr. Saab, we've had a little outlay of the current situation in Syria, with the rebel forces advancing, taking hold of Aleppo and moving towards Hama as well. But what are the humanitarian consequences as far as this is concerned, which includes displacement, refugee flows due to all of this fighting?
Unfortunately, the situation for human beings, particularly for the women and children, is very critical. As for some of the reports, the initial victim of this whole incident are many children. So the situation, humanitarian situation in Syria was already not very good, and they were in the trouble. And this recent insurgence has created a lot of problems for the civilian population, particularly for the children and for the women. Syria, and particularly this area, it is a beacon of Islamic heritage, and unfortunately the beautiful people of Syria and this area, they are suffering for last 2 decades, and particularly these days are very hard for them. On one side, Syrian air forces, they are attacking on them, and on the other side, the rebels, they are trying to get the control of several areas.
Well, you talk of rebels that are trying to take control of several areas, and I've heard that Aleppo is under their control as we speak. Could these rebel advances, in your point of view, lead to a shift as far as the international community's stance is concerned towards the Syrian conflict? We know there are certain, loyalties towards one side or the other, but could that change?
In my opinion, there will not be any big change.
All right.
Because all key players, they are standing on their positions. The rebels, they are seeking opportunity from the recent Middle East broader crisis. They feel that the supporters of Syrian government, particularly Hezbollah and Iran, they are weakened. On the other hand, Syria is involved, Russia is involved in Ukraine. So they are trying to get an opportunity from this situation where they feel that the sponsors of Syrian government, they are weak or they are busy in somewhere else. Otherwise, there's no big change. The rebels, this Hayat al-Tahrir, this is one of the supplanted group from Al-Qaeda, and they have been declared terrorist group by the international community. But there's a possibility that they should have some external support from Middle East, different Middle East powers. Unfortunately, the situation of Syria is worsened day by day, and there are several consequences for the world. Unfortunately, there will be some consequences for Pakistan too. We have to be careful about that situation, and we have to carefully study what is going on there. We should not remain irrelevant from the situation. Pakistan is one of the largest country of the Islamic Ummah. So this is a issue of Islamic Ummah, and Pakistan has to understand the issue. But I suggest here that Pakistani political parties and Pakistani religio-political groups should not involve in any type of this conflict.
All right. I'd like to also understand, you talk of the situation in Syria that has been complex since a very long time. It is becoming more intense in these last few days as well. How does that influence regional security, particularly of those countries that are in and around Syria, like Turkey, like Lebanon, or well, even Palestine?
Yes, this situation, the first negative impact of the situation is that the attention that was concentrated on Lebanon-Israel incidents, now it is divided. So, and the energies will also be divided. All energies were focused on helping Palestinians or helping people in Lebanon. Now these energies will be divided. Another problem is that this is not just only a conflict, regional conflict limited into a particular region. This is actually conflict that is conflict between the soft conflict between several powers, which include Iran, Syria, Middle East, other Middle East countries, and Turkey. So the consequences for this conflict is very serious, not only for the people, civilians, but for the broaderly for the Muslim Ummah too.
All right, Dr. Develay, thank you very much to have joined us and to have discussed Syria's ongoing situation, how it is going to impact the Muslim world and the regional countries. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Let's come to our last two stories very quickly. The first concerns Joe Biden, who has pardoned his son, Hunter Biden, despite claiming that he will not do so in the past. Now, in a statement, the president said his son had been singled out and called his cases a miscarriage of justice. Hunter Biden had pleaded guilty to tax charges early in September, was found guilty of being an illegal drug user in possession of a gun in June as well, and becoming the first child of a sitting president to be convicted of a crime. Now, President-elect Donald Trump has said this as a reaction. He said, does the pardon given by Joe Biden to Hunter include the 6 January hostages who have now been imprisoned for years? Such an abuse and miscarriage of justice. Of course, he was referring to what happened as far as the capital rights of the 6th of January is concerned. But nevertheless, this is a development in the US political front. Finally, let's talk about today's important day, that is the International Day for the Abolition of Slavery, which is being observed across the world, including in Pakistan. The theme this year for this International Day is fighting slavery's legacy of racism through transformative education. The day, of course, is observed to raise awareness, calls for actions to eradicate various forms of slavery, such as human trafficking and child labor as well. We need to understand the complexities of it all, whether it be in our society, whether it be in our region or in regions across the world. The fact that, and the importance of the theme this year when it talks about transformative education, I think it is through education that we could maybe bring a change in the new generations, the upcoming generations, to handle such issues in a different and more constructive manner in order to abolish slavery and different forms of it once and for all. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we come to an end of today's news, and we'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments about into us, you in Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.